If Mark Bergevin finds himself on the unemployment line, this may very well be what does it. Word has it that Jonathan Drouin's been moved to the wing, and everybody's saying, well, that's where he belongs. That's his natural position. No, you can't just do that. See, during the summer, there was a move made where Drouin was brought in. Sergachev was moved out. The idea was Drouin would be down the middle. He'd be that center they needed. That's what they brought him in for. That's why they gave him all this money. Here's his career stats. 22 points as a rookie in 70 games. 10 points in his second year in 21. That's when he was arguing with Steve Yzerman about his place with the team, and Yzerman clearly was getting agitated with him. He had 53 points last year in 73 games, played really well after being given an opportunity, but his face-off numbers were 43.6%, and he struggled at center when he played there for Tampa. This year, Montreal, 40 games, 6 goals, 15 assists, 21 points. His face-off numbers are lower in Montreal playing center than they were as a fill-in center in Tampa playing in sheltered situations. Jonathan Drouin's career is at a crossroads right now. He's in year 4. His totals last year at 53 points were seen as a starting point. He was supposed to get better. Early on, Habs fans were like, oh, he'll get 60, 65 points, easy. He might get 70. He's going to be a star. We don't mind losing Sergachev because we got Drouin, who's going to be a star. Now, Drouin needs to score 32 points from here to equal last year's total. And that's not easy. That's almost a point a game from here to get to last year's total. And he's got to do it with this as their forwards. When I was watching last night and I saw to start the game, they had Drouin and Galchenyuk with De La Rose in the middle. I really was struck by just how odd that looked. Jacob De La Rose, decent young kid, okay? But to give him the opportunity to play between Galchenyuk and Drouin is a burden for this kid. Galchenyuk has been a disappointment. Putting him and Drouin together early on in the season, heck, before the season I was saying put them together. But right now I'd keep them apart. But where else do you play them? You've got Pacioretty with Byron and Hudon. That line you don't mess with that line. Byron's a good player. Pacioretty's getting his goal scoring going. Hudon, well, he's at least showing that potential. Second line you got Lehkonen, Plekanec, and Gallagher. Now of course they're missing Shaw. That's why Carr's in here, and you got Delorier, Freeze, and Carr as your fourth line. But this is a hurting roster. This is a hurting roster, and Shaw can play center as well. I really think that this move could hasten the end of Bergevin's run as GM. Look, you can get away with grabbing Shea Weber for PK Subban. You can get away with that. But your other moves have to be stellar, or at the very least, they have to keep your team in contention. Jonathan Drouin is not a star player on his own. You look in Tampa right now, and you look at the guys who are still there. I look at like a Tyler Johnson as an example of that. If Tyler Johnson was picked up and dropped into Arizona or into Buffalo's lineup, is he a star? Maybe in Buffalo, only because the forwards are there to support him and build him up. Is he able to create that offense all by himself? No, it's not Tyler Johnson's game, and I don't think it's Drouin's either. I haven't seen it. He's fast, he's half decent with the puck, and he has flashes where you go, that's why he was drafted 3rd overall. But for the most part, it hasn't happened, and the problem is when you take a half of a kid's season and you put him in a spot where he's clearly not comfortable, his numbers continue to suffer more and more. He scores 1 goal in 13 games. He's just not, it's not working. Now you move him back. On some level, does Drouin look at this and say, well, I failed, And is this going to drag him down the rest of the way? And even if it doesn't, who's passing him the puck right now? Who's the center that's going to pass him the puck? Is Plekanec going to move in the middle? Are they going to move Byron down? I mean, this whole thing in Montreal comes down to down the middle. The NHL is built down the middle. If you've got a contending team, you've likely got 3 really solid centers. And this is part of the reason why I think, I'm not worried about Toronto falling apart, because they've got 3 solid centers down the middle. If they only had 2, and in Montreal's case, who do they have? Who do you look at on this roster right now? Which guy do I have on the wing? And I pulled these off of off dailyfaceoff.com. They seem to be the most accurate in terms of the lineups. Who's going to do it? You take Delorier. Delorier's a good energy guy. Almost no hands. Do you throw him in? How do you get Jonathan Drouin scoring to justify losing Mikhail Sergachev? Mikhail Sergachev, who is a star defenseman in the making. Mikhail Sergachev, who could patrol the blue line for the Tampa Bay Lightning for the next 10 years. What does Drouin give them? And I've heard Montreal fans say, well, if Sergachev was here, he wouldn't be putting up those kinds of totals. Right. Yeah. Okay. I'm sure if Sergachev was in Montreal, it wouldn't have helped them at all. I'm sure it wouldn't have helped. I don't even understand what that even means. When Grabner was sent out of Vancouver and he ended up having the really good first year with the Islanders, I stated I didn't think he would have had that same year with Vancouver because I didn't think there was an opening there for him. But I wasn't going to say, oh, well, he wouldn't have scored goals. The statement that Sergachev somehow wouldn't have managed to make his way onto this Montreal roster and he wouldn't have been able to have the kind of season he's having in Tampa is partly true because they wouldn't have been able to shelter him behind a solid defense that Tampa has. But let's not overstate things. There's a reason why Tampa was looking for Sergachev. They needed help on the blue line. They had to get rid of Drouin to stay under the cap. They couldn't afford to pay him. And they needed help on the blue line. Montreal needs help on the blue line. And now, down the center, this is anemic. This is why Montreal's missing the playoffs, is this anemic problem down the middle. And even when Drouin's in there, even when Drouin's penciled in as the center, it just wasn't better. And it is a shame to bring a kid in and put that on him. Montreal can be rough. Montreal can be very rough on their players. And I feel for the kid. I think he'll score better on the wings. But again, who's passing it to him? You look at his career numbers, and there's a lot more assists than there are goals. There's 35 goals, 81 assists. Who's he passing the puck to? Galchenyuk on the other side? Are we going to have, like, what we saw in Vancouver when you had Naslund and Bertuzzi and Morrison's in the middle, but even though Morrison was the center, he had less points than both of his wingers? And it was by a substantial amount. Well, no, because Drouin isn't going to score like Naslund, and Galchenyuk's not going to score like Bertuzzi did. So at best they might be able to help each other out. I haven't seen any chemistry between them. It was said during last night's game. I'm trying to remember. I think it was Ray Ferraro that was down there, and he said they're trying everything down here, and there's no chemistry on the Montreal lines. This is an absolute disaster. And this is a team that won their division last year. Somehow. The Atlantic last year, Ottawa's in a playoff spot, and they go almost to the Stanley Cup, and Montreal's the division winner, and I don't know how either of those things happen when I look at what's going on right now. Montreal has deep, deep, deep problems. And the funny thing is, the #1 news article you're going to find is trade value of Max Pacioretty. Take Max Pacioretty out of this lineup and tell me what you got left. You got Lankinen, who's a 20-goal scorer. You got Gallagher, who's a 20-goal scorer. And Galchenyuk, if he gets it going. Drouin, he's got 21 points in 40 games. He's got 6 goals. He's on pace for 12. This is a perfect storm. And the sad part is, at the center of it is a young kid who was probably better off being in Tampa than he's been in Montreal. I hope he comes through it, and I hope this learning experience works for him. But who is the solution for the Montreal Canadiens at center? And it's not John Tavares, because remember, he still belongs to the Islanders, and they've got cap space to re-sign him. And one question I would ask for Montreal fans to just jump in and go, we're going to get Tavares. Why would Tavares sign here? What reason does John Tavares have to look at Montreal and say, of all the places in the NHL, I got 31 places I could go, that's where I'm going to go. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And hey, thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.